Hey everyone, welcome to the channel and I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, we talk about history, crime and similar subjects, so if you're interested, be sure to stick around. Anyway, let's get into today's case. Airey Neave was a very distinguished man, having been a British soldier, lawyer and Member of Parliament. He even served during World War II and was the first British prisoner of war to successfully escape from Offlag 4C at Coddit's Castle. But despite this, he would still be met with a terrible fate in 1979 when he was assassinated in a car bomb attack. Here we look into his life and death. Airey Middleton Sheffield Neave was born on the 23rd of January 1916 in London. His father was Sheffield Airey Neave, an etymologist by profession, and his mother was Dorothy Middleton. His father came from an affluent family, as his great-great-grandfather, Sir Richard Neave, 1st Baronet, was a prominent merchant in the West Indies throughout the 18th century and was governor of the Bank of England. Airey had a comfortable upbringing and received a good education, studying at St Ronan's School in Worthing before attending Eton College in 1929. While attending Eton in 1933, Airey wrote a prize-winning essay that looked at the possible consequences of Adolf Hitler's rise to power in Germany. In this essay, he predicted that another widespread war would start in Europe in the not-so-distant future. As we now know, this tragically came to pass only 6 years later. During his time at Eton, Airey served in the college's cadet corps as a cadet lance corporal. Then, on the 11th of December 1935, he received a territorial commission as a second lieutenant in the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry. After graduating from Eton, he enrolled at Merton College, Oxford, where he read jurisprudence, which is a theory or philosophy of law. During this time, Airey purchased and read all of the work of Karl von Clausewitz, a Prussian general and military theorist. He stated regarding this, "Since war is coming, it is only sensible to learn as much as possible about the art of waging it." Airey completed his degree in 1938, just 1 year before his prediction of another world war came to pass. In May 1938, Airey moved his territorial commission from the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry to the Royal Engineers. After World War II broke out, he was mobilised and sent to France in February of 1940. Yet just months later, Airey was injured and captured by the Germans on the 23rd of May 1940 in Calais. He was subsequently imprisoned at Offlag 9 AH near Spannenberg. Airey remained here until February of 1941, when he was moved to Stalag 20A in German-occupied Western Poland. Then, in April 1941, Airey managed to escape from this prisoner of war camp with Norman Forbes. But sadly, their triumph was short-lived, as both men ended up being recaptured while attempting to escape into Soviet-controlled Poland. The following month, the two men were imprisoned at Offlag 4C, commonly referred to as Coddit's Castle. But as before, Airey wasn't going to wait around and set about planning his escape. Airey's first escape attempt came on the 28th of August 1941, where he disguised himself as a German non-commissioned officer, but his plan failed as his handmade German uniform showed up bright green under the prison spotlights. For his second escape attempt, Airey teamed up with the Dutch officer Anthony Lutijn. Again, the escape was attempted with the disguises, but this time the men had made better uniforms and an escape route. Against all odds, their plan worked, and after making an exit through a trap door during a theatrical production, the men made their way to Leipzig and Ulm before reaching the border of Switzerland near Singen. Airey made his way back to England via France, Spain and Gibraltar. He made it home in April of 1942, over 2 years after he was captured. Airey was the first British officer to make it out of Colditz Castle. A month after he returned to England, Airey was given the Military Cross and later promoted to War Substantive Captain and given the permanent rank of Captain on the 11th of April 1945. Airey served as a temporary major as World War II neared its end and was appointed an MBE on the 30th of August 1945. An MBE stands for Member of the Order of the British Empire. On the 18th of October, Airey was awarded the DSO, which stands for Distinguished Service Order, and is given for distinguished services during active operations against the enemy. Airey's escape from the Germans now garnered the attention of MI9, and he was recruited as an intelligence officer. Airey was now supporting underground escape operations and contributed to the safe return of over 5,000 British and American military members. After D-Day, Airey travelled to France and Belgium and, with the help from the Comet Line and the Resistance, rescued over 300 Allied airmen who had been sheltering in forest camps after being shot down. Once the war had ended, Airey Neave served with the International Military Tribunal at the Nuremberg trials. He was tasked with the role of reading out the indictments to the Nazi leaders that were on trial. He went on to author several books that covered his war experiences and went into his account of the trials. During the early 1950s, Airey Neave tried his hand at politics. He was a member of the Conservative Party and was eventually elected as the MP for Abingdon in June 1953. Over the next 20 years, he built up his reputation within the Conservative Party, and outside of politics, he served as a governor of Imperial College and was on the governing body of Abingdon School. In February of 1975, Margaret Thatcher was elected as leader of the Conservative Party. Neave had been her campaign manager during this time and was rewarded in his efforts by becoming the head of her private office. After this, he was appointed as the Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and had been poised to gain the equivalent cabinet position should the Conservatives win the 1979 general election. As Shadow Secretary, Neave believed that the British government's policy of containment against Irish paramilitary violence in Northern Ireland against the British state was ineffective, and instead favoured a military offensive against this violence. This stance brought him to the attention of both the Provisional Irish Republican Army and the Irish National Liberation Army. They saw him as a threat and had to make sure that his ideas were not made a reality. In March 1979, a vote of no confidence was called, and the Labour leader, James Callaghan, lost, meaning a general election was to be held, and many expected a Conservative victory. If this occurred, Neave would become the new Secretary of State of Northern Ireland, meaning he could now implement his military strategy. However, before the election took place, Airey Neave was tragically murdered. On March 30th, 1979, 63-year-old Airey Neave was critically wounded after a car bomb fitted with a tilt switch exploded under his Vauxhall Cavalier. The bomb went off at 2:58 in the afternoon as he began to drive out of the Palace of Westminster's car park. The explosion was severe, with Neave losing both of his legs. He was quickly rushed to hospital but died a few minutes later as a result of his injuries, approximately an hour after being rescued from the wreckage. It wasn't long until the Irish National Liberation Army claimed responsibility for the assassination. Indeed, earlier that day, 2 Inla paramilitaries disguised themselves as workmen in order to gain entry into the House of Commons' underground car park. Inside their toolbox was the explosive device that they would use to take Airey Neave's life. They quickly scanned the area and identified Neave's car, and when no one was looking, they fixed a 16-ounce bomb onto the floor panel under the driver's seat. After his passing, Margaret Thatcher said the following of Airey Neave: "He was one of freedom's warriors. No one knew of the great man he was, except those nearest to him. He was staunch, brave, true, strong. But he was also very gentle and kind and loyal. It's a rare combination of qualities. There's no one else who can quite feel them. I and so many other people owe so much to him, and now we must carry on for the things he fought for and not let the people who got him triumph." Labour Prime Minister James Callaghan said, "No effort will be spared to bring the murderers to justice and to rid the United Kingdom of the scourge of terrorism." The INLA released a statement regarding Neave's assassination in August, saying, "In March, retired terrorist and supporter of capital punishment, Airey Neave, got a taste of his own medicine when an INLA unit pulled off the operation of the decade and blew him to bits inside the impregnable Palace of Westminster. The nauseous Margaret Thatcher snivelled on television that he was an incalculable loss, and so he was to the British ruling class." In May of that year, the Conservative Party won the general election, and Margaret Thatcher took power and became Prime Minister. Thus, had he escaped the attempt on his life, Neave most likely would have become the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. Years later, Neave's biographer, Paul Routledge, met a man who was involved in the assassination. He said regarding Airey Neave that he would have been very successful at that job. He would have brought the armed struggle to its knees. This highlights why they felt his death was necessary for their cause. As a result of Neave's assassination, the INLA was declared illegal across the entire United Kingdom on July 2nd, 1979. Airey Neave's beloved wife, Diana, was elected to the House of Lords as Baroness Airey of Abingdon following his death. Neave was laid to rest in the graveyard of St Margaret's Church at Hinton Waldrist in Oxfordshire. Thank you everyone for watching this video on Airey Neave. I hope you found it interesting. If you have any suggestions, be sure to leave them down in the comments, and I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next unfortunate end. Thanks.